You see, last Sunday, I was at a rehearsal for this event. And I came in, I gave my technology in the lifeboat spiel in front of the TEDx review board, as well as some of the other presenters. And you see, I use this image of a lifeboat to talk about, how we are insecure as people and how technology can appeal to these insecurities. And essentially, that vulnerability is like the thing that'll get us through, that'll solve our problems. And it was ironic, though, because after I presented, what the reviewers and the other presenters unanimously said was that I was up there talking about vulnerability and asking them to be vulnerable, and yet I wasn't vulnerable at all. And this really struck me, and I realized, as I was walking away from that event, that I had intentionally tried not to be vulnerable in front of them. And see, I realized that I had done this because I was scared of what they would think. I had just completed my draft of my talk. I didn't really have any time to practice it. And so it was kind of in a shoddy place. And I was afraid that if I was emotionally vulnerable and I really invested in myself, they would compare how hard I was trying with sort of the crappiness of where I felt like I was at. And they would think that, like that was my best effort. And they would just sort of dismiss what I had to say and think that I wasn't very, smart, or, what I had to say was not very meaningful. And so because I was afraid of being vulnerable, I backed away, and I didn't put in the effort. I was scared of the rejection that could come from really putting myself out there. And, this makes sense. I've been reflecting a lot over the past week since that happened about my life and various experiences where I've shied away from vulnerability because of the fear of rejection. And, I've had a lot of experiences in my life where I've really opened myself up, and I've let people see who I really am. And they've seen sort of the twisted knot of brokenness and insecurity that is my heart. And they don't seem to know how to deal with it, and they back away, or they reject me. Over time, having these experiences of hurt just building up within me has made it very difficult for me to be vulnerable with others. And it came to a point where I felt that no one would understand, that it wasn't even worth giving people the chance, the opportunity to hear where I was really at, because I just assumed that they were going to reject me. I just assumed that they would push me away. And so there are major life struggles that I've had that some of my close friends and family just don't even know about. There are people I would consider my best friends who don't know that 2013 was the hardest year of my life, and I spent a lot of it feeling lonely and depressed and insecure. And there are also other ways in which I shy away from vulnerability besides just pushing people out. I've learned how to talk about my problems in a really objective and impersonal way. So that way, if someone reacts negatively, my problems are over here. They don't really have to deal with me. I'm safe over here, far away from that rejection. I do this because I still want connection. But what I found after a long time of this little act is that I don't find the connection that I want. I don't find that sense of belonging. And what I've come to realize is that the belonging and the acceptance and the love that I want can only come on the other side of being vulnerable. And so this is the tension that I live in. Wanting acceptance and belonging, but being very scared of stepping out and being vulnerable. And isn't this the tension that we all feel on a day-to-day basis? That we're social beings, wanting love and connection with each other, yet we're so scared of letting people see who we really are. We're so scared of being vulnerable. And so we crave what we fear. We want deep friendship and intimacy while fearing the potential of rejection and hurt. See, we live in the tension between our deepest needs and our greatest fears. And this plays out in the way that we use technology. See, at a first glance, technology seems to offer us a solution to this tension. And we use technology to resolve this tension in two main ways. First, through managing our image, and second, through risk mitigation. So first, we manage our image. Through our social media, through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we are able to present a touched-up version of ourselves to a broad network of people. We untag unflattering photos of ourselves. We post pictures of ourselves that show us off as being really attractive or funny. Usually after, doing a little touching up an iPhoto. We spend long times thinking up clever statuses or tweets so that other people will think that we are insightful or funny. We post pictures of us with these groups of people doing really interesting things so that other people will look in and be like, wow, they're living such an adventurous and meaningful life. Or we post links to events that show how involved we are, how many meaningful things we're doing. So other people are like, wow, he's organizing a charity event, he's speaking at TEDx, look at him. He just has such a great sense of purpose, and look, he's doing really great things with his life. And so while much of our online interaction is aimed towards connecting with others, it is also an attempt to get people to regard us in a certain way. You see, we edit out the parts of ourselves that we don't like, and we flaunt the parts that we do. We're afraid if people see us for who we truly are, then they will reject us. And so we feel that we have to manage our image and self-edit in order to convince other people that we're worthy of acceptance. Secondly, we also use technology to mitigate the risk of vulnerability. See, it is much harder to stand in front of someone in person and talk about your insecurities and your struggles than it is to send them a text explaining the exact same things. You don't have to look them in the eye when you tell them something that will make them angry or upset. And you don't have to bear the weight of that raw emotional reaction, whether good or bad. You don't even have to be available or accountable to respond. See, when you're in person, so much more so than when you're texting or Facebooking, you have to take the risk of being emotionally vulnerable and face head-on the potential of rejection. See, when we use Facebooking or texting, we get to step back and hide and be distant and unaccountable because we know that, if we're distant, the sting of rejection will be a little less sharp, the pain of measuring up a little duller. See, we feel safer behind a screen. And this is what can be so seductive about communication technology. We feel like we are doing the emotional work of friendship and of opening up because we are technically still sharing with other people. We think that we can be connected and intimate with a broad group of people without actually having to take the risk of being truly vulnerable. But what if this isn't really connection at all? What if, by avoiding the bad, all the potential of hurt and rejection that come with being vulnerable, we are also sacrificing the good? You see, when we edit out our perceived shortcomings, when we hide, when we do whatever we can to prevent the possibility of rejection, we are also sacrificing so much of what is beautiful about friendship. You see, when we back away because of our insecurities, we miss out on being comforted in the midst of those insecurities. When we hide because we are ashamed of some of the things that we've done and we don't want anyone to know about them, we miss out on being accepted in spite of those mistakes. In being vulnerable, we do risk rejection, but the even greater risk is closing ourselves off to the affirmation, the acceptance, and the belonging that can only come on the other side of that risk, the love that we most deeply need. And I'm sure that this sounds pretty idealistic to a lot of you. And for some of this, you may walk away feeling hopeful or feeling courageous or inspired to take the risk and see what's on the other side. The reality is that many of us are going to walk away from this event and we're going to try being vulnerable, and it's not going to go well. We're going to open up and we're going to be rejected, and it's going to hurt. And we're going to realize why we're so scared of being vulnerable in the first place. But when that happens, I want you all to remember this. Other people's rejection of you does not change your worthiness of love and acceptance. Nothing can change that. Whether your vulnerability is met with acceptance or rejection, you are and you will always be enough